So the first and only time I played Path of Exile was in 2022 for about 6 hours, and that's it. Just like the Stalker series, I don't know a lot about the Path of Exile series, but I do know what I like and what I'm not a super big fan of from Path of Exile 2's early access period that just launched recently. As always, these are my thoughts and opinions on the game. If you have your own, drop them in the comments. Weighing my personal pros and cons of Path of Exile 2, I think that Path of Exile 2, in early access, because it is early access right now, falls onto the lower side of my I love it category, right next to, like, Neva. I think the game is really good, and I'm having fun with it, but there are 3 major cons that I have with the game. The biggest frustration that I did have with Path of Exile 2 was the loot system when playing in a party. On default, if you don't grab stuff that's specified for you right away, then you and your party don't know whose loot it was initially to pick up, and anyone can grab it after a couple of seconds. If you're playing with randoms, then this could be a big problem. As I was looking up something about the loot system and seeing what other people thought about it for this video, I came across a Reddit post where somebody said you can change it to be exclusive loot to each person. It's in the party settings. I didn't know about that. I didn't know there were party settings. So that con has kind of been settled for me, but it would be nice if they indicated, like, the first time you start a party that there are more options for the loot and party systems down at the bottom of the party screen. Because some people, like me, are not observant and they're just trying to get into the game to play with friends. And speaking of the loot system, unlike Stalker 2, where I do like the system they used for their inventory with the graph system and stuff, I hate it in this game. I hate that system in Path of Exile 2. Okay, it's more of I hate the size of the character's inventory because it's so damn small that you are constantly going back to sell or disenchant stuff, and it just feels like it breaks up the flow of the level so much, and it kind of sucks that it does. I want more space for stuff that I pick up, so I'm not going back as frequently after like 3 to 5 minutes of combat. Maybe it's just like, because we've been playing in a party a lot that I've had to do it a shit ton, but because they drop more loot in the party mode. But I don't know. It feels really small, and I would like, a full page for an inventory so that I can go and just collect all the stuff in an area and go sell it at once instead of doing a trip every like 5 minutes or so. And then for my third con, it has to do with combat. If you're playing with a party, there is player collision on out in the world. It's turned off in the town areas, but when you're out fighting, it's back on, and it's annoying as hell. It just makes exploring the world together that much more annoying, because if we're inside an area with hallways, we're always running into each other trying to get through doors. If we're stuck in a small arena, we keep rolling into each other. And like, I can stop Mike's charge by just being in front of him. Like just standing in front of him or moving down the hallway, and he's faster than me with his charge, he's gonna run it. He runs into me and stops. It would be nice if, could just run through. And these complaints are just with 3 of us. You can have a party of up to 6 people. So if we had 6 people playing and running around together, then I honestly think that system would be kind of unbearable. And those are my 3 biggest issues with the game. The default loot system in parties, the size of the inventory, and player collision. But as you know, I don't like being all doom and gloom and just, hating on a game for issues like that. I also want to look at the brighter sides. So let's talk about the pros of Path of Exile 2. Starting with where we left off, and that's the combat. I love combat in this game because it's insanely simple, but has a bit of strategy within it. Your basic overview of combat in Path of Exile 2 is, okay, it's really spammy, like a lot of ARPGs. For default, using Q, E, R, T, F, along with the left and right click and the middle mouse button, you cast your spells and abilities, and unless they have an actual cooldown, you can basically spam a lot of them. Maybe all of them, because I don't think there's any that really have that big of a cooldown. There's also a dodge roll to get out of the way of enemy attacks, and that's your basics of combat. Where the strategy part of combat comes in is deciding on what skill gems you'll equip. You've got 9 total slots for skill gems, not counting weapon skills, but only 8 slots for using those skills. So you have to find the best combination of skills for how you want to play your character. And I say character instead of class because you can get any skill if you meet the requirements for it. If I want to be a witch running around with a sword and using sword skills, I can. It's not optimal and it doesn't work well, but it's possible. And I think the biggest draw for Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile in general is the combat and the freedom of choice with your character, with the skill gem system and the passive upgrade system being the major highlights of that freedom. The passive upgrade system is that thing that freaks the fuck out of new players to Path of Exile. When I checked out Path of Exile for the first time, I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know what to do. There is too much here. It's that giant web of different skills you can choose to increase different attributes. And it is overwhelming when someone plays the game for the first time. But when you get to the point of understanding it and trying to create your own build, it becomes a really interesting and intriguing system. Trying to figure out the best way to get to a specific point and create a build you want to use is probably the most satisfying thing in Path of Exile 2. Just finally seeing the light of, oh, I want that major passive, so if I go around this way on the tree, I can also pick up these passives that synergize with this main passive and create a build through that and add on to that. It's a really satisfying and interesting system. And while creating a build is kind of a pain in the ass, when it's like, okay, I want to test this stuff out, and then I gotta pay for it to reset it and stuff, like, it's still a really good system and a really interesting system with how much you can expand it. Then you've also got the exploration of the different areas within Path of Exile 2 that is kind of interesting. It's not the most interesting level design, but it works and it is still fairly decent level design. And the most interesting thing about Path of Exile 2's levels is that I think it's like every 15 to 30 minutes, the level layout resets if you left the level. Like if you find the entrance to a different area or a dungeon and you come back to the area about 15 minutes or so later, then you'll have to explore again and find the exit again. And all the monsters and stuff respawn, so you have to fight your way through them again. It's a good way to grind out some XP, so I kind of like it, but it is a bit annoying, especially if they go and like the dungeon was on the left side of the map, but you had to go to a different area for a quest, and then that dungeon moves to like the bottom right side. Like it's kind of annoying, so it's like, I know where the dungeon is. If I go there, it's not there. Where the hell is it? It kind of sucks that way, but it's still fun to go and try and, find it. Finally, I'm kind of going to talk about the story, but I'm going to be honest, I don't pay much attention to stories when I'm playing with friends. Like, I'll get the gist of what's going on, so I know what's what's basically happening, what the overview of the story is. But that's about it, because I'm trying to stick with them and they're flying through the dialogue, unless it's like an actual cutscene. So I'm flying through the dialogue and, kind of just skipping stuff to keep up with them so they don't, finish it and run off before I'm done with it. So what I do know about the story is I know there's a seed of evil or demonic stuff that's corrupting things, and you're in pursuit of the one that has the seed, and you're fighting their minions as you chase after them through the campaign. That's about as much as I've gotten of the story while playing co-op, and we're only in like Act 2, so maybe it changes and evolves in like Act 3, but I don't know right now. All in all, I think Path of Exile 2 has launched into early access in a really good state. There's a good amount of content, the first 3 acts from what I've heard, and I think it's really fun to play. Yes, it's missing like a bunch of skills for different weapons and things like that, but those can easily be added in when they get to that point. And I don't think it super affects the gameplay unless that's the kind of weapon you're going for. And I think that mechanically, Path of Exile 2 really shines in its combat, but I still have a few nitpicks about the game that I would like changed. The player collision and the small inventory stuff. But overall, I think the game deserves to be in my I love it category, even if it's on the low side during early access. It might kick up higher once the game fully releases and all the content is there, but we can only wait and see. And that's really all I have to say about Path of Exile 2 in early access right now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please do all the algorithm stuff. Like, sub, and all that. But most importantly, I hope you have a royal day or night, and I will talk to you next time.